Starting again, we're going to show you a quick removal of foam. We've measured back 2 inches, down 1/2 to 3/4 or so. Guesstimate the angle. I feel like one of those employees at the subway. And we cut in from the top along the skin. So we're going to remove all this foam and all this micro back to this far. We've found several very useful tools. Hacksaw blade. This works splendidly. The edge of a very sharp file or chisel looks good to scrape, and the blade edge now reversing this will help to some degree. Make sure that's still in the video. So if you get the gist of that, clean it up and we'll fit this one. Okay, what you're looking at is a quasi-repair here. You notice that in this area we have no bombo and we have a tongue depressor. Robert, no, don't touch that.
What is that?
Hang on, I'm taping, videotaping. And we had to bring the trailing edge up to get the back edge of both winglets parallel. Now, of course, with both wings on, it's not terribly difficult to do that because we can line them up, sight them. So we've removed half the bondo, tweaked the trailing edge up. This skin, without any foam underneath it, is quite flexible, allowing us to get away with what we're doing, using the front edge of this as a hinge of sorts. Let me rub that really good in there so we get a good attachment. I'm going to rub your back in there too. Go ahead. And we've already done the triangulation off the back edge. We're well supported with that pylon. I'm going to use my finger here real quick. Make sure that, yeah, it moved. I get you back again here. Okay. Let me rub some bondo on this. Okay, we're well unparted. Okay, we're going to turn off the tape here real quick and be back with you in a moment. Okay, we're back. Wings have been removed from the aircraft. Glenn has a vacuum cleaner in his hand so that we can keep the carbon fiber off our hands as best we can, and I'm going to grind into this corner to create an 1/8 to 3/16 inch radius in this edge. I have a carbide grinder here, and here we go. We'll give you a few seconds of what it looks like in Now I'm going to zoom in on this and show you what that particular spot looks like. You see the bondo right in the corner? Right now all we have is a corner right here. The bondo in the corner, as provided from the back side, is a form of sorts so that you can actually generate this radius, because with two skins that are not more than 30 thousandths thick a piece, a true corner you wouldn't be able to put any cloth around without having a bubble on either side of it. So we're going to feel free to go right into the bondo to generate the radius. We're going to go ahead and remove the rest of this material, and in the final analysis we'll show you what that radius looks like. Buchanan that. Okay. What you might have just heard Glenn say was you got to be careful with the air. You can blow the skin off the foam, which you can do quite easily with directed flow. And there's the radius. And we've ground it flat on it with a small disc, which is this unit here. Got inside here, went down the edge, creating a 45-degree bevel, and rounding it off where we had the room to round it off. Now we'll get in there with our fingertips and some sandpaper, probably a piece of tacky black material, and rub it with just our fingertip, get the radius, get the corners off the bevel. And we'll go in there with 10 plies of glass. The measured length here is, I believe 20 inches by 4. And as we put them in one by one, we'll snip the cloth 1 inch or 2 inches of its width, of its 4-inch width, where this is. Brush resin on the back side, and then stick the cloth inside, tuck it back into the corner, and wet it out. Back with you as we start that process. Last bit of tape I showed you, I was talking about snipping the cloth 2 inches, that's where the shear web is, about 3.5 to 4 inches in. And before we do this glassing process, I want you to do the 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch flox corner, all the prep for it. So all your foam work is done, at least on the vertical stabilizer and on the wing, before you do any glassing. That's the 1/2 inch. We're going to remove that much foam on both the winglet and on the wing. Do all the sanding and prep. Now, flox corner isn't going to be much different than the other prep. We're just removing a little less foam. The idea here is don't remove any more than you need. You're just going to add weight to your airplane by doing so. Because you'll have to fill it with something. And in this area, you don't want to risk filling it with something light just because you overcut it. There's your corner. See if I can get you a shot from the other side here. There it is. Now excuse me because I'm not left-handed. But this will be a lot easier to clean than that last corner will be. No, it was. Hold it all the way along, and we'll be back with you as we actually start laying up cloth. Okay, we're back with you again. The prep has been done on the underside. You can see it's clearly black. And that's what we've done on the end of the wing, where the cable goes up inside. You'll notice that it snakes. And cut a groove with a hacksaw blade. About 2.5 to 3 inches, it finally becomes, it goes flush again with the inside of the tube. There's the end of the tube way down at the end. And this will transition down to here after the low-up. We'll get this back out of here and then do the low-up. And get this to take the shortest route to here. And we'll pack the chips on top of it and then lay up, stack blocks in this groove. Stack blocks in this groove and then lay up the 8 plies from here to that corner and back up again. But first, 8 plies. That's the wrong easy. 10 plies from here to there. Partial cure, micro balloons and chips. Partial cure, sand and clean up, or just cut and clean up because you want this as active as you can have it. Then you're going to fill this with chopped cotton, that with chopped cotton, and then lay up 10 plies from here, touching that corner intersection, the earlier 10 plies, and going to here. After that partially cures, then you're going to stick a block of foam nesting between this surface and this surface, from here to here. And we're going to carve from that corner to that corner, from that corner to this corner, from that corner to this corner, translating into straight lines from here to here to there and across with a unit, starting with 2 plies a bit. But we'll cover that a little bit later. Back to you in a moment. I just remembered something a moment ago that I needed to show you. That Maniflow tube is exposed 2 inches back and about a ½ inch or so forward up the base of the Maniflow tube. It's completely clear all the way around. And then we go look at everything else, ½ inch to 5/8 of an inch back. It's clean and prepped. The Maniflow tube prep is very important. This preparation allows the flexing of this to occur. We're going to have to cut that Maniflow tube back about 3/4 of an inch or so to allow for room for the thimble to go inside. Actually, the horn actually travels inside of this, the length of the cable thimble and the swedge. And you don't want the swedge to bottom at the end of the Maniflow tube and not have the Maniflow tube able to swing and align with the cable. Because if it doesn't, what's going to happen is that the end of the swedge will flex every time it goes into the Maniflow, and it will break the end of the swedge at the cable. It'll break the cable itself. So take heed of that, and back with you when we begin to glass. Back again to the sound of British rock and roll and Glen water scraping on his flock's corners. What you're looking in the foreground here is brush, scissors, a pair of gloves, upper left, and 10 plies of glass rolled up like sausages, 4 inches wide, 20 inches long approximately. And the next thing I'm going to do is mix up a batch of resin and brush it into the depressions. And I'll have a little bit of flocks to smear around and help me with transitions in a few areas. And I'll be back with you in a moment. Okay, back with you again, just to show you the brushing on of resin. Glenn's brushes are a little bigger than I'm used to using. No, this is fine. The increase in size is more in thickness than in width. But this is all right. I'm going to let a little bit of resin go up here on the foam so that it's a little less tendent to chip, or if chipped, it'll stay where it's chipped. All the way back inside, up the shear web. I might actually trim some of these out of here so that there's less of a tendency to do this. Push the resin in underneath, all the way to the bottom. Don't worry about getting it on your coax. Your coax will be hidden from view forever. For those of you who are more fastidious than I, you can cover this surface here with tape. All the way to the bottom. Get it wet out. Now I'll be back with you in a bit after I've adjusted my brush. Okay, we've got the cloth strip set up. Make sure that it's full length. Come in 4 inches to the web. Cut halfway across. There's the cut. Now the next little piece is loads of fun. Actually, it's not loads of fun, it's a pain in the neck. You'll tuck it in, go all the way back into the corner, all the way to the very back. And surprise, surprise, it actually does. Pick this up, take it back to the intersection, start pushing it back, all the way back into the corner. And after you get it all the way back into the corner, then you'll take this one and push this portion down inside. And believe it or not, you'll get faster at it, ply to ply. Spin all the way to the bottom of the corner. Modify the tape as you go. Make sure that it fits all the way in the back end. This cut line should go right to the web, as you can see here. And I'll cut this off. Right there. And make sure you can see that. Pardon the little guy in the corner there. He's just doing what little boys do. Snip off anything that doesn't look like it's going to be necessary. I'm only going to run 1 ply of glass in the area of the nylon flow. Only remember, just one. Run this inside the corner. Don't bunch it up. Just push it all the way to the back. Now I just stuck a piece of paper towel into the Mataflow tube so I don't fill it with resin. In retrospect, I can see that it would have been a very good idea to cover this with tape so that I don't pick up foam chips from this surface. Run it down inside. All the way down. Now this particular part of the ply back here isn't going to go all the way to the back, so you'll find you have excess on the vertical here in the rear. I've got about 1/2 inch. So it's coming back up this side. Not a problem. I'm going to wet this out now, like you would any other ply of glass. And I would be not at all concerned about being liberal with resin in this particular portion of the layup. Better wet in this case than shy of necessary resin. I'll wet this out and I'll be back with you in just a moment. Okay, we're back with you again. Well, we've just done ply number 3, and I forgot to put flocks in this corner. Fortunately, it was a smooth transition, and the white I saw underneath there was just a little bit of micro that was left. But do make a transition between the spark cap and this flat with flocks, and any other transition that looked like it might be trouble, put flocks in it. And I got it tucked all the way down in here. I keep a paper towel handy so that every time I pick up a chip of foam or micro, it comes off the brush before the brush goes back inside this corner. I'm going to go on with the next plies, and I'll be back with you further downstream with the process. Okay, here we are. Last ply, number 10. And from the first ply, we ran all the way to here, all the way to the back end. And then all subsequent plies up through 8 went about a ½ inch or so forward of the nitaflow. And that means at the front end as well. Don't bunch it up at the back end. You want this nitaflow capable of moving with the control horn, especially at the end of its travel with full rudder application. Now, I've been going rather wet on most of these things, and about every third ply I put the cloth on and don't add much more resin, sucking it up into the layers above. Now this is the last one. This is number 10. Now what I mentioned, number 8 ended here. Number 9, I went back over top of this again to smooth out this transition. If you want to add a little bit of flocks in the area before you put down number 9, it's fine. It depends on whether or not all the plies are in one place. If they've been staggering back and forth an 1/8 of an inch or so, then you'll have a taper on the edge of the cloth so this won't hook on it. And that's how mine turned out. So I didn't put any flocks, but it'll depend on your particular application. I'm going to keep stippling this in the easy area, if you notice, until it's completely wet out. Now I can stop worrying about getting the foam chips off, because at this stage, I don't care if I got foam on top of it, because that's the next step is micro balloons, relatively heavy, dry micro. I'll brush resin onto the area, pack this with chips of foam, cover with dry micro, and then cover them with dry micro, leaving approximately a 1/4 inch of the center of this radius exposed with no micro on it. This layup is going to contact that in the corner, and you're going to use flocks to make sure you get good contact. And this is turning out very, very nice. So I'll give you a full shot of this handheld on the camera as soon as I'm done wetting this out. And I'll be turning off the camera now. Okay, number 10 is on. You'll notice the cable is pulled back in. Look down into the depths of the lamp there. I'll get a light on that for you. Sorry about the jiggle. All the way to the bottom. You can see where the ply ends right there. Ends up 2 plies in the back and 8 plies from here forward. All the way up to the corner, all the way down along the back side. And when next we meet, we'll be stuffing foam chips and micro in those corners. And bye for now. Hello, we're back. We've just been to an English pub. It's 11 o'clock at night. This is firmed up. It's 73 degrees in here. It's been curing for 2.5 hours, and it's just stable enough now where we can install this. As I'm not transferring to my fingers. Just cut some 1/2 inch by 1 3/4 inch wedges, enough to handle the volume of this. These you can cut into large pieces, and they'll just tuck straight in. And the other pieces here, cut the same way, but you cut them into pieces because they curve this direction. We'll mix up some medium micro and slurry this up and stuff it down in there, endeavoring, from the back end here all the way up, to not have any gaps when you are through. I'll be back with you in a moment after we've mixed some micro and show you how that gets stuffed in there. Back again. This isn't quite dry micro, but it's pretty stiff stuff. I'm going to go into the back here, and you notice I've got a plug of paper in my NitroFlow tube. I don't want any nasty surprises. The resin will run down there and plug that tube up, and I will be a rather unhappy camper. But I do say not as unhappy as Jim would be. So, do protect your assets. Yes, keep them clean. I'm covering both edges, and what you don't want here is you don't want gaps. So I'm going to cover this surface, that surface, that surface, and that surface with this, and then stuff it full of chips. Now, I'm not going to insult your intelligence and show you every step of this. I know that you know how to fill gaps. You've all been working with budgets all your life, so. That was a very little joke. Very little joke. Okay, so I'll be back with you as we stuff foam. Hello again. Going to the back. Okay, as you can see, I have the foam coated both sides, the opening coated both sides, ends covered, tube plugged. Go all the way to the end here. And as they say in some parts of the world, stick it. Work it down in there. Shimmy back and forth. Do whatever it takes so that you're satisfied that all voids are filled and you have contact everywhere you want it. Now we're going to take a knife through here and we're going to cut this thing off flush, straight across, leaving this corner exposed. And then we're going to scrape the corner so we have nothing left in it. Now I've got a gap right here. I'm going to fill with micro. Flush. And then I'm going to smear this across here, level. It might be a little bit premature for me, but I'm just doing this to show you what I'm doing. Now this were a knife, I'd go through here and snip it right off. This might have been just a bit steep because it's trying to come out on me. If it wants to do that, you want to cut your pieces just a little bit narrower so that it has no tendency to push back out after you put it in there. Okay, we're back with you. And as I mentioned before, now, as I was pushing this down, I was actually pushing the winglet laterally along that rather flexible edge. Make sure that you don't stretch it too much. Here we are, cut flush. Now I'll go ahead and finish up the front portion of this, and hopefully I'll be back with you with something new. Okay, I've got chips of foam cut on the top. That's the other wedged to go into the corner. And Glenn's mixing more micro. This is out for the moment, so I can get in there. And obviously the foam chip on all those surfaces is no concern because we're about to cover it with micro and foam anyway. And I'll slop those up with slurry, stuck them in, or medium micro, stick them in there, and be back to show you the last little section. Okay, last process. We've just done the fill work on the upper section. We've scraped most of the micro that would have been above the surface off to expose as much of that center as possible. We're breaking for the night. It's midnight here in Great Britain, 12:15. Tomorrow we'll hit it lightly with 36 grit to bring it all into plane. And then if there's any filling left to do, we'll do that with flocks in the corner to make sure that we get no micro between the 10 plies that tie to that corner and the rest of the structure. So we'll see you next tomorrow morning as probably the first thing we'll do is we'll fit a block of foam that goes in here from right here to right here. That'll be the first thing we do. We'll sand this first, then we'll fit the foam block, set it aside. Then we'll do the 10-ply layup in here. The first 2 plies will run from the trailing edge all the way to the leading edge. We'll go down into this surface, 6/10 of an inch or so for a C-section. We'll do a flux corner around this edge here. And our first 2 plies being 32 inches in length, will go from the front all the way to the back. It'll be trimmed down so it does not cover this opening. And then we'll follow with 8 more plies in this area, which is the major structural load transition area. Back with you tomorrow morning. Our micro isn't entirely solid yet. Something I'd like to mention real quickly here is that you'll notice that the coaxial cable doesn't come out at the leading edge. I believe that during the construction of the winglet I mentioned that this should exit at the center line of the leading edge, which then uncomplicates the exit of the coaxial cable where this laminate is concerned, where the first 10 plies are concerned. This ends up covering up a portion of the structural potential transition area in the corner. So this should exit right at the leading edge. Couldn't on this one. It's partially hard, and right now I'm going to trim into the trailing edge area, move some glass, and just give you a quick show of how this is going to go. I'm going to remove 6/10 of an inch here of foam. Carve down, clean up this area. That'll be how deep I'm going to go, both sides, and create a transition across here, because this will be where my control horn attaches in this depression. And I'll be back after I've removed this foam. Hope you can see this clearly. We get about 5 to 6/10 of an inch deep here. Hacksaw blade cutting on the draw. I can set my depth. Clean the skin at the same time. You can see it shaving there. The idea is this is all supposed to come and project a plane slightly below the nyla flow, so that when you put your horn in here, it ends up pointing at the nyla flow. There's the rib detail that I was talking about. We really have rethought this up here in the front about putting a flux corner on this edge. It's really superfluous because we're going to put a PVC cover on this for a fairing glass over top of it, lapping onto this skin, which makes this rib completely unnecessary up in the front. So we are not going to do, as I mentioned before, we're not going to do the flux corner around this rib. Forget that. Which makes your glass measurement for the first 2 plies, instead of 32 inches in length, which I've already cut, it makes it 27 inches in length. So 2 plies, 27, 8 plies, 13, cut them 14 so that so that you can play with it. These are all 7 inches wide. This is the widest area right here. This measures 6.5. 7 will give you the full complement. Make sure you can cover it. When you do the flux corner removal, the removal of the foam, 3/4 of an inch wide, and the length of this 2 inches deep, don't go any further than an area, pardon my reach, it's 2 3/4 of an inch forward of the trailing edge of the wing. That'd be 2 inches deep, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch wide, leading edge to right here. That is 14 inches forward of the trailing edge of the canard and 2 3/4 of an inch forward of the trailing edge of the wing. This has only gotten in the way because this needs to taper from the trailing edge to right here. You see we've got about a 3/16 of an inch deep here to the foam level. It gets progressively deeper to the trailing edge. It's at least 1/2 an inch here. This will facilitate having enough space for the rudder horn to travel and make contact to this without going through layers of glass. I'm going to further bevel this back from here down this direction. And as this progresses, I'll be back with you. Now, there's another little detail here that I remembered to mention to you. You notice this little piece of peel ply? Make sure it gets dug out of there, scraped off. It should be centered over the cut. And it'll be the same thing on the opposing side over here. So don't forget to remove it. And this is the definitive. We're not going to go any deeper than we already have. We're going to lay glass up when we go in here. It'll go down and it'll come up to this edge. Gets to here, it'll come straight up and lap this flux corner. If you are wondering how this will actually function, what happens here is the control horn pivots from high to low as it moves. And what we're laying up here really is the roof of this cavity. And the layup process will be the next step as we apply the flux and the first plies. Okay, ignore the lathe in the background. We're going to brush resin back in this corner. Make sure that it's wetted all the way around. A little pure resin on this glass, transition down the center. Pure resin down the edges of the rib. And of course, pure resin on this flux corner as well. And I'm going to turn the rest of this resin into flux. Now the foam surfaces, if you're very careful, you can use a micro slurry-on. You can be very generous in this corner with flux, 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 micro in the surfaces. Do not impart micro onto the phlox areas. It's just very poor practice. Okay, I'll be back with you in a moment with phlox. Okay, we've just laid a piece of glass down on it. Goes right up to the front edge of the phlox here. Goes right to here. I've overfilled the phlox just a touch. Experience has shown that it has a tendency to suck in here. Now I'm going to come back here, make sure I can see that on video. Yes. Right there. Obviously this is way too big for this section, but can't do it if you shoot for too... We're going to end up cutting this open here a bit. Go down inside here. Tuck it down in there, really get her into the corner. If you want to go with a little bead of micro right in the corner to make sure you get good contact, it's just fine. There's no load at the trailing edge. Okay, now I'm going to mix up some resin and wet this out. I'll do another ply just like this one, identical. Then I'll follow with 8 more plies in this area, and that'll conclude this 10-ply layup. Now, the one thing I should have mentioned to you before, and something I should have done before I laid this glass up, I should have made up my foam block and fit it in here prior to putting the phlox in and all this stuff, because now I'm going to have to wait for it to harden fairly well before I can start fitting a block in here. But no big deal. Either way will work. One just doesn't take as much advantage of cure cycles as the other. Okay, we're back with you again. Check my mic. Hello, hello, hello. Everything's working. There you see the first 2 plies, and the back end is well exposed. 2 plies into the back, and now we're going to apply the first of 8 plies to go on the rest of the surface. There's my stack of 8 plies. And it's right up to the front face of that opening. Make them long intentionally so that you don't run short of material. And always cut it off. The front. If you take the rows, these lines, and run them down this groove, it'll guarantee a 45-degree glass transition around this corner, which is what you really want. I'm going to do this 7 more times, and that will complete this layup process. Okay, we are done. There's the 2 plies in the back. There's your Nyloflow, clear, clean, and exposed. 8 plies, ending there. All air removed. Last 2 plies, last 4 plies are done with alternating heat. The last ply, no additional resin was added to get the laminate as dense as possible. And that's it for this process. We'll let that cure a little bit, a knife trim, and then we'll fit a foam block between this area and right here. And we'll bond it in place with micro. I'll be back with you at that process. So, back again. Block of foam, cut to fit. This is a bit tacky yet. I'm pushing the edges of what I should be doing here. But it fits closely. Now, I'm not going to teach you how to carve foam. If you're not a sculptor, I suspect you probably never will be, but notice I'm a little low right here. I'll fill that with dry micro just after I've done the fitting, squeeze it in place, and that'll all cure. You got a little hollow right here. I'll fill that with micro. It goes up to just forward of that depression. My glass is a little on the long side there, so I'm erring on the side of caution. I'm going to mix up a batch of loose micro, something just above the saggy micro, something that'll squish out. I'll cover both surfaces with a thin layer, cover this with a thin layer, and then put a heavy bead right in the center. And then as I squish on it, it's going to push the material laterally out, displacing the air as it goes. Back with you, Ben. Back again. Okay. I've made up a batch of relatively stiff slurry. And I've never done this and allowed my structures to completely cure. If you do, give it a light sand, just enough to make sure that you bond well to the foam. It only has to be enough to bond to the foam. That's your weak link. Slurry this up good. Slurry the foam well. This develops its strength because this foam, this glass is captured between layers of foam. So it makes your airplane so strong. It's much stronger if you've got no voids. If you have no voids. Excuse the English there. Now I'm going to cover my foam the same way. And I'll be back with you in just a moment. Alright, you'll notice I've got a whole pile of stuff on the corners, and it's relatively loose. If it was any thicker than this, I'd never get it to move. You got it piled up here in the center as well. Start off by squishing it into the corner and attempt to get it to move this way and this way at the same time. We're already getting massive squeeze out on the top and out the front. Good sign. If you don't get squeeze out, more than likely you've captured air. coming out all over the place. There we go, coming out the bottom, out the front. Keep working it until you feel you're close to the surfaces and nested well into position. Okay, we've got a block of foam in place, a weight in place, a drywall screw in the back, and a drywall screw. This one's going diagonally into the wing. This drywall screw in the back, no longer visible, is not only pointing down, but it's pointing inboard to pull it into the corner. The screws are important if you're going to put a lot of weight on it, because if it wants to shift, it's likely to suck air in somewhere. So make sure you're all the way down, and if the screws keep it down while you put more weight on it. We'll let this cure, and I'll be back to you with the next process. Okay, it's been a few hours. Still a little bit on the green side here. We get the screws out. You can see this glass here dangling. That was removed with a very sharp scalpel through the surface. And I attempted to dull this blade with the drywall screws, and thought better of that and decided probably a good idea if I showed you what all this looked like before I forgot. Now before I go too much further with this stuff, I'm going to have to let it cure a little bit more, because when I shape this, I intentionally grind into the corner and make about an 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch radius at these points of transition. Now you can see pretty clearly there that I have almost no bond line, very, very little material between the two surfaces. I have a little more on the vertical. The weight helped drip in, as did the screws, pulling that direction and down at the same time. I'll go ahead and scalpel off the rest of this glass and get everything flush here. And it looks as though with the angle of transition that this will be enough micro to fill that groove that I had there. If what the heck. You're going to get an idea of what it looks like. Our grain orientation is going to range from the middle of a triangular-like section, about right here, diagonally across and straight down the middle of the spot cap. So when you cut, when you shape foam, that must be preeminent in your thinking. That is how your grain orientation is going to go. It's not going to be a curve. It's going to be a straight line from any given point through these areas. So this is going to be nearly vertical, this is going to be nearly horizontal. But again, I must emphasize, and this is one of the most important layups you have on your winglet. Grain orientation goes through this area, across, in a straight line from point to point. Not straight line across this way, because that's not your layup. Your layup goes down the middle of this spar and down through this section here. Or actually paralleling this line here. If you imagine something going through the middle of this, that is where your major layup goes. We'll be back to you in a moment. Well, we're back. Notice this edge. This is the edge doing the sanding. It follows that description I gave you before. If you do this, you will have a scallop across your grain orientation, and you will have ruined the strength of your winglet. So don't do that. If you look at it this way, it looks crowned. It's the individual lines that you're concerned with. And I'm going to show you that from the side. Now at each crossing intersection, I'm all the way at the back, and here's the angle of my grain orientation. Now I've still got a little bit of a crown there, so I'm going to sand that. Okay. That would be straight across. Wrong. That's diagonal down the spar cap. There's your straight line. From corner to corner to corner to corner. Along the grain orientation of the uni. I have a little bit to work on there. I have a little bit to work on here. The straight lines are what you want across this helix. Pay very close attention to this. We'll be back to after we've reached the point where it's hard enough for me to radius into these corners. Once this is hard enough for me to radius, then it's hard enough for me to actually do the layup over top of the edges. Not until then. Okay, we're back. There's the front edge. All the sanding has been done. Clean. There's the hole opening to the nylon flow. Back end all cleaned off. It's having a hard time focusing on what it wants to see. I'm going to shift it to the front here and show you what the radius looks like. We got about 1/8 of an inch radius. Nice view of the floor, huh? There's the back and the helix, you can clearly see. Yeah, right there. Glass can make that transition very easily. Right there, that's about 1/8 of an inch or so radius. Let me see if you can see that. Back up on this so it doesn't quite have the problem focusing. Here we've got a good radius. Here we've got a good radius. Back here we've got a good radius. Go to the upper surface here. And go back up. Sorry, I don't have a cameraman, but glass will make that radius very nice. On that corner, that corner, that corner. And there's our transitions. Nice and straight all the way across, making a helix. Do that, we'll be back for the setup, sanding and cutting of glass.